This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and I am with Lisa McClellan, the sister and caretaker of former two-time world boxing champion Gerald McClellan, who suffered tragic injury in the ring due to a lot of unfortunate circumstances. So, thank you for taking the time to be with us today, Lisa.
You're very welcome.
So, could you tell us, for those of us, this is a wrestling channel, but we also touch on boxing and MMA. For those that aren't familiar with your brother's career, he was a great knockout artist and had an amazing record. Could you give us the short rundown of his career?
Yeah, he was the WBC and the WBO middleweight champion. He um he started fighting when he was probably 8 or 9 years old. Um After high school or during high school, he went to the Olympic trials. He missed the spot for the Olympic team due to a technicality. They weren't able to get a hold of him, so he turned pro and he fought his first fight. After the first fight, he went to Kronk and fought with Emmanuel Stewart, and he fought with Emmanuel on Kronk's team until probably 93 or 94. The fight with Nigel in 95, the fight he got hurt in, he had parted ways with Emmanuel Stewart. So he was basically alone.
What was the issue on the separation from the manager? Why he wanted to go at it alone?
Um, I think there was just a difference in opinion. He and Emmanuel had some differences, and I think a lot of it was he was used to Emmanuel focusing solely on him, and when Emmanuel got other fighters and wasn't always at training camp with him, he had an issue with it. So I think that was the reason for the split, but I just don't think he had made the decision where he was going to go next when he took the fight with Nigel Benn. I know he was, Don King promoted the fight, but I don't think he was assigned Don King fighter, but I know he was a promoter for that bout.
And in that fight with Nigel, where he got the brain damage, the referee, I guess, didn't actually speak English. It was a French referee, and it was partly the referee's fault that the fight wasn't stopped, and it was partly his corner's fault. Could you tell us the story of what happened in that fight?
Well, I've never actually watched the fight. I've seen clips here and there, but I was told the referee didn't speak or understand English. Um, and then also the guys that were in the corner with Gerald were garbage and should have never been in the corner with him. I think the whole point of having them there, Gerald was so confident in his ability, he didn't think he would. He thought he could carry himself, and basically he had them there just to be in the corner um, because he thought he had control of the fight.
So I understand that, like, at one point, did he ask for them to stop the fight and they didn't understand that he wanted it stopped, from what you get?
I don't think I like I said, I never watched the fight. I don't, or I've never heard that Gerald asked for the fight to be stopped. I just think the ref had to be a complete idiot, along with the doctor, along with the cornerman, not to see that he was in trouble.
And what exactly was the damage to him? Because I understand that he ended up going into a coma once he got to the dressing room that night.
Actually, after he went down on one knee, um, he, from a very reliable source that was a part of Gerald's team, but wasn't in the ring at the time of the fight, he told me Gerald was actually woke until they got to the hospital. So I don't think he actually went into a coma until they took him for a brain scan, and they saw that he had a bleed, and they took him to surgery.
And what were they able to do in the surgery? Because obviously you take care of him now. He was never able to fight again, and he had 29
No.
knockouts, 34 total fights, 31 wins. So that's an incredibly high knockout percentage. I can understand why he was so confident going into this fight, but what was the
Uh,
basic diagnosis?
well, he had a subdural hematoma, which is a blood clot in the frontal lobe. So they removed the blood clot. As a result of it, the pressure from his brain, the pressure in his brain, it caused the brain. He has a lot of damage, and he's also completely blind.
I understand from Tommy Morrison's widow Tricia that there might be some stem cell innovations that you're hoping might be able to help your brother.
Well, right now, as a part of, I, I started the foundation, and I'm working with several wonderful doctors, and one of the doctors have a treatment protocol, and Gerald has been under that doctor's care for 4 months now, and it's one of the doctors that work for the foundation who's helping. Um, so in the 4 months that we've been on the protocol, Gerald, his speech isn't slurred anymore. He started having some memory of the fight that night in England. His memory is a lot better. His short term memory is a lot better. His long term memory is excellent. Um, he's able to um, have, he speaks on the phone by himself. So he's made great improvements under the protocol, but it's not stem cells. So what Dr. Gordon does is a part of his protocol. He removes the inflammation, and then he balances the hormones. So I'm giving Gerald um, peptide injections and testosterone injections to balance the hormones in his brain. So the results we're getting, Dr. Gordon has used this protocol for 19 years now, helping veterans with traumatic brain injuries. And at a very high, they've made improvements at a very high percentage rate.
How often does he have to have the peptide injections? Because they're still illegal in Canada, but I hear in the U.S. they're being prescribed all the time.
I give him peptide injections twice a day, in the morning, the morning and the evening, and then we do the testosterone injections every 3 days.
What did you think about Nigel saying he didn't have any sympathy about what happened to your brother?
Excuse me.
What did you think about Nigel's not being sympathetic about what happened to your brother?
Um, I think what happened in the beginning was the media kind of took things out of control, out of content, to where um they kind of made the media kind of made it worse than what it actually was. But however, it didn't matter because we didn't care.
Were you able to get any compensation or anything from the boxing federations related to this injury?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part.
Like, were you able to get any extra compensation since this incident happened in the ring? Was there any liability? Like, did they feel any liability, the boxing organization that this took place under? Was it WBO or WBC at the time?
The WBC, and to answer the question, no, there was an insurance policy through the BBC, which Don King was the beneficiary, and Don cashed the policy.
So Don kept the money to himself, is what you're trying to say?
Yes.
That
Well,
that's
in the beginning, which Don did fly family members over and took care of them when they were there. So in the beginning, he said he was paying for that in addition to Gerald's purse, and he was doing that because he was a great guy. Um, so when I found out about the policy and I went to the BBC and I learned that Don had cashed in the policy, and he said, well, that's the money I used to take care of Gerald's family. So he he got the insurance compensation.
that's unfortunate. There's a fan on here that wants to know if you are ever going to write a book about your brother's life.
Um, when I started the Ring of Brotherhood, I started the Ring of Brotherhood to tell stories about fighters' lives after their careers were over. And the first episode was about Gerald's life. And I got a lot of interest in the docu series because it was a docu series. I got a lot of interest in it, with some really big people, and I've kind of put that on hold because it just seemed like the foundation was more important because a lot of these guys need help, and it's more important to help these guys than to tell those stories. So at some point, I will go back and complete the docu series, which will tell the story.
What other fighters are involved in the foundation that people might recognize the names of?
I'm sorry,
Oh, what
I didn't
other
hear you.
fighters are involved in the foundation that people might recognize their names?
Well, I've this foundation is very new. I have a lot of guys involved. That's helping. Um, the fighters that we've helped. Um, right now, we've helped Wilfred Benitez, and there's several other fighters that we've helped. But I've not what the foundation is I want to help the guys that are suffering. So my goal is to raise money for the guys that are suffering to be able to take the treatments that Gerald's taking now and other treatments that are going to be available. And not only the treatment, housing, counseling, or whatever their needs are.
Mike Tyson once said at one point in time, your brother was the most best fighter in the world. Has Have you had much contact with Mike Tyson at all over the years since the accident? Or
I've had a relationship, or I have a relationship with a lot of the fighters. Definitely the fighters from that era, and then I've been connecting with a lot of the guys, a lot of the active fighters today, and I've gotten a lot of support from their trainers and managers and the fighters as well.
and Gerald was inducted into the World Boxing Hall of Fame in 2007. What was his reaction to that? Considering everything he's been through, I assume he was so happy about it.
Oh, absolutely. That Hall of Fame, he was inducted the same time as Julian Jackson. And then so was Joe Cortez, the ref that ref the fight between him and Julian. So it was a nice little reunion of um, those two guys being there with him. So he enjoyed that a lot.
Were you a fan of boxing at all, or what do you think about boxing after you see like the negative side to it so much, with having to deal with the aftermath with your brother and not getting the support from the federation that the fight took place in?
Well, I I still love boxing. Boxing is a great sport. And when I first started the Ring of Brotherhood, um, I worked with another um, 5013C that helped fighters called Ring 10 New York. And I, the president was Matt Farrago, and Matt also developed CTE. So the last couple of years, probably the last 3 years, I actually kind of helped him run the organization because of, his he was having issues with his memory. So I got to know a lot of the guys that he helped, a lot of the fighters like Dennis Milton, Junior Jones, Iran Barkley, all those guys were a part of Ring 10. So I got to be really close to a lot of those guys because those were the guys we were helping. And so when I started um, the Ring of Brotherhood, the first person I went to was Mauricio Suleiman because he had helped me in the past help a lot of these guys. Whenever someone was in trouble, I could pick up the phone and call them and say, "Hey, this guy is homeless. They need help." Um, and he jumped right into action to help those guys. So when I started the foundation, when I started the Ring of Brotherhood, I didn't want him to think we were attacking boxing because he had been so supportive. So I did a presentation of what I wanted to do and where I seen the foundation going. And he has been my biggest supporter. And he's helped me every step of the way. So he's also responsible for making sure the treatment that Gerald Gerald's taking now, he's assisting me financially and paying for those treatments.
And you are affiliated with the WBC, aren't you?
Excuse me?
Are you affiliated with the WBC for the Ring of Brotherhood?
Oh, absolutely. We have a partnership. Yes.
Okay.
And
And what is
also
that
with the
partnership?
W um we he has helped financially, and he's opened a lot of doors for me to be able to help the fighters, as well as he's actually helped as well.
Did your brother have any kids or anything before this happened?
I'm not catching the first part of what you say.
Oh, did your brother have any kids or anything prior to the
Yeah, he
incident?
has three. Yeah, he has three children. Um, Gerald Jr., his oldest son, is actually fighting now. And he has his daughter was 6 months old when he came over for the Nigel Ben fight. And he has another son that's 35 years old.
Okay. So I guess this affected his whole family then. Was he married at the time?
No,
Okay. So I guess the mothers took care of the kids then since your brother couldn't at that point.
no, the children, he's still been in the children's lives. Um, Even after he got hurt, he's been a very big part of his kids' lives.
Oh, that's good. So what's the record of his son now? How's his son doing?
He is 6-2. He just had his second loss a couple weekends ago. Um, he was fighting on the in the boxing league for Dallas in Houston. He did pretty well in that on the boxing league. Um, I think he might have had too much going on, so he had his second loss a couple weeks ago.
Have you seen much changes in boxing over the years since your brother's injury? Do you think the sport is better now?
I definitely don't think it's better, and yeah, I've seen a lot of changes. Um, I'm I I don't watch much boxing anymore. Um, I do watch my nephews fight, so it's hard. It's kind of hard to comment because I don't really have the time to follow it like I used to. Still a big fan, but I just don't really have the time to um be the fan that I was when Gerald was fighting, or when Roy Jones and Mike Tyson and Mayweather. I don't watch it like I used to.
What do you think about boxing's future now that, I mean, the boxing fighters still make a lot more than MMA fighters, and there's more of these exhibition fights and big money fights happening overseas, but it seems like MMA's kind of become more popular than boxing in some ways these days.
My biggest concern is wanting those involved to look after the fighters when they're injured or their careers are over. So I want to try to be a voice for the ones that are are already in need of help, and then to try to bring some awareness and education to the active fighters today. how important it is to take care of your brain health, and also to basically educate them just on different things, including finances. Um, so that's where I stand as far as boxing today. I'm not really interested in who's winning. I just like to see the people with the deep pockets behind the sport take more responsibility to help the ones that are in need.
So, what can fighters do for their brain health? Obviously, the ones with CT, what would your suggestions be to try and help themselves?
There's different protocols with the doctors that I'm working with. There's many different levels of care or things that can be done to protect your brain. Even the biggest thing would probably be to know the damage that they're doing to their brains by not being hydrated and losing weight and the way they're losing weight. And so there's a lot, um and I'm still learning. um Basically, I take the fighter and pair the fighter with the doctor, so I don't know everything, but I do know there's a lot that can be done even as an active fighter to protect your brain.
How is the partying scene in boxing these days? Because we hear more in that 90s, late 80s era, people like Mike Tyson were going extremely hard. Even Tommy Morrison at various times was partying pretty hard. Has it calmed down a bit today, or do a lot of these boxers still have a pretty wild side to them?
I couldn't even tell you. I'm the area where I know best is getting the guys help that need help.
So people can go to your website if they want to learn more about your foundation. Um, do you have social media as well that they could find?
Yes. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. There's a YouTube channel, um, Ringer Brotherhood Foundation.
Jeffrey Wilson says hello to you. Do you know who that is?
Tell them hello.
There you go. Well, I
Yes.
appreciate you joining us and talking about your brother. I watched the documentary that's online about him. That I don't know if you guys put that together or not, but it's a very sad story. Just because of, I think if the
I
referee had
started
been
out.
better, your brother wouldn't have had to undergo this. Was there any consideration of suing the referee and the league after this happened?
No, I I heard, or I watched somewhere. Someone sent me a video where that ref actually won like ref of the year or something.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And for the fans that don't know, apparently the fight took place in England, so they didn't want to have an English referee because they didn't think it'd be fair because Nigel was from England. So their theory was, hey, let's bring in this referee from France. He'll be neutral, but they didn't take into account that he barely spoke English.
Don King knew what he was doing with that ref. I don't think it had anything to do with that. I think it was, he was put there for a reason, and I won't go into what why I feel that way, but um I don't think it was about anything of him being biased. So
Someone's confirming here that that referee did receive an award in France. That's bizarre. Being someone that's concerned about fighters' health, I don't know if the fight will ever happen still or not, but for Mike Tyson against Jake Paul, that was canceled, but they're still talking about it may happen later in the year. I know Mike is going to make a lot of money for it, but do you think that's a safe fight to fight a guy that much younger than him? Where Mike, I know he's in good shape now, but he has put his body through a lot of hell through many decades now. So there, it is still pretty risky, even considering Mike's background.
I saw a couple videos on Instagram with Mike, and he did look like he was in really, really, really good shape to be his age. Um, I've actually spoken to Mike's camp and Jake Paul's camp, and it was to get both of them to donate to the foundation to help the fighters. So, um, if it happens, we'll see.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll donate something if it happens, because I think there was some tickets there that were in the millions of dollars, some VIP packages. So lots of money involved there. Well, thanks again, and I'll let you close this off with whatever message you want to tell the fans. God bless you for taking care of your brother. And what do you, maybe before we go, what's a typical day for you taking care of your brother?
Um, Very simple. We're usually up about 8 in the morning. We have our coffee. He gets his bath. Um, he's very, very spoiled after being cared for 29 years. So he's used to me waiting on him hand and foot. Um, so lunch, like today, we had a road trip today where we stopped halfway. We ate dinner at Culver's, had some ice cream, and um, now he's downstairs in his chair taking a nap. So just kind of varies. Pretty normal.
Well, I'm glad to hear that even despite the disabilities, you're taking good care of him. So yeah, I'll let you close this off with whatever you'd like to say to the viewers.
My biggest message is, if as a fan of the sport and to the other fans, if you love the fighter when they're on top, um, just be more supportive of the fighters when they're in need, when they're hurting, and when they need help. You know, my favorite ref, and I did a PSA, um, and some messages on keeping the fighter safe. My YouTube, the videos are on my YouTube channel, with the Ali family, with Tony Weeks, with one of Mayweather's trainers, on how important it is to look after the fighters in and out of the ring. And Tony Weeks has been my hero because um, he's paid special attention to not really care about what the fighters are saying, the fans are saying, what should be done, and he's making the decision to make the calls to keep the fighter safe. Um, and we have to support the ref's decisions. I seen Tony had gotten beat up a lot for some decisions he's made to protect fighters, And I think the fans are wrong um for the abuse, for keeping the fighters safe. It's really hard. um I've given up 29 years of my life to care for my brother, but I'm not the only one. Yvonne Benitez does the same thing I do every day, and she's 80 years old. You know, it this is not easy, and having fighters leave the ring in healthier states is what we should be fighting for.